And then we're going to do is we're going to update the draws log. Okay, what I like to do is keep track of the draws. So what we've got here is draw 1, there's the date, and then the question is this a materials only draw? Yes or no? So sometimes the lender will release money at closing for materials only. So if this happens, you don't have to do anything. The information is going to come to the office here. The admin's going to take care of it. She's going to produce the material draw and update the numbers for your file. So what will happen is you're going to see that draw 1 has been completed. It was materials only. And then your first site visit is actually going to be draw number 2. Okay, so if draw number 1 is not materials only and it is an actual site visit, then you do your draw, and then once you submit in the portal, you click or you fill in this box here, because what that does is that tells you that you've done all of your draw information in your checklist, you've updated your log, you submitted it in the portal, and you hit submit. Okay, and then you do the same thing for draw 2, draw 3, draw 4, draw 5, and all the way down until the final. This just tracks all of your draws. You know what date you were there, and you know if you've put it through the portal. Once you put it through the portal, there's really nothing else for you to do except wait, and then when the packet comes to you, you review it. If it's good, you sign it. If not, you send it back to the admin, and then they revise it and then send it back to you. Okay, the other thing we like to track is the change orders. Okay, lots of times the client or the contractor will reach out to you, the consultant, instead of the office, and they might say, hey, the client wants to do a change order, they want to upgrade the countertops, or we ran into this or that. And so what we do is we direct them to the change order portal, which will train you on that too, but there's a change order portal that we can send to the contractor and the client and say, fill this out, tell us what happened, and then all we've got to do now is approve it or decline it, okay, or put it on hold. So for instance, what could happen is with a change order, and we're going to train you on this when it comes down to change orders, but long story short, if they've submitted a change order on whatever date, they described the change order, and then you've approved it or denied it. If you've approved it, pretty simple, run it through the portal, the office will create the change order packet and send it out to the client and the contractor to sign, and then once it's signed, it'll go to the lender. Okay, the things that you're going to approve up front and right away are things that are health and safety issues or that need to be done. So let's say they're putting on a new roof and they run into bad roof decking, or they run into a rotten roof truss or something like that. Well, it has to be fixed. There's no way to stop, wait for the lender, get approval. It just has to be fixed, or they can't keep moving and they can't stop the job. So one of those type of items are just going to be approved. Okay. Now let's say they want a hot tub, and that's not allowed, so then we can decline that change order. Okay, and let's say they just want upgraded countertops, but they're not done with all the health and safety issues, they're not done with the mechanicals, the demo, they could still run into something. So then what we'll do is we'll put that one on hold, and we'll tell the client, hey, just wait a second, we haven't declined it, we haven't approved it, it's on hold until we know that the project's far enough along that we're not going to run into any other unforeseens. Because what the lender wants to make sure is that those reserve funds are used for unforeseens and things that are going to stop that job from moving forward or being finished. Once all of those unforeseens are dealt with and taken care of, then the client can use those reserves for upgrades. So lots of times we'll put one on hold and just say wait, and then we'll approve it later. Okay, then we're going to talk about the final draw. So obviously this system here, the draw log, this is used for all the draws, number 1 through whatever. Sometimes you can get up to 6 or 7 or 10 draws, depending on the bank, but most of the time it's 5 draws. That all happens within this section here. Okay, then at the final draw, this is where you're going to close out the file. Okay, so when you're doing the final draw, just call timeout real quick. There's a few things that need to happen in order for the lender and the client and everybody to close this file out 100%. What we don't want to have happen is things are in limbo, change orders haven't been signed, reserves are still left that they want to use. There's all kinds of things that could happen. Occupancy permits might need to be done, final inspections might need to be done. So the final draw is a little more detailed because we don't want to ask the bank to close this file out when we don't have all the information. Okay, so following this checklist, just like above, what date are you there and did you submit it through the portal? But you're going to verify if any open change orders need to be processed, The other things you're going to verify is if there's any occupancy permits needed, if there's any final change orders, if there's any clearance tests like lead, mold, radon, things like that, if there's any punch or warranty items, because a lot of times what happens is the client has a punch list. Now, if it's super small and the client's in good standing with the contractor and they're confident the contractor is going to come back and do those final little mini punch list items, then lots of times they'll close the file out. But let's say the laundry list of punch items is kind of long, or the contractor's been a little difficult, then we don't want to close that out until the contractor's 100% done and the client's happy with it. And then there's going to be an automation that goes out for testimonial. We're going to try to get the client to give us a referral or a testimonial. But if you're on site and you've got a second and the client's standing there, you might ask him, hey, do you mind getting on video here? Tell us how this went. Tell us what went wrong. Tell us what was good, what was bad. And just give us a real world scenario of this whole entire process and maybe your recommendations for other folks that are going to get into this process. So that's more of a marketing thing. And we do that sometimes, but a lot of clients are kind of camera shy. They don't want to be on camera. But sometimes they'll just give us a written review or a written testimonial, which is fine too. And then how do we close out the file and perform the final inspection? Obviously, making sure all the permits and inspections have been done. Make sure all the change orders have been approved and closed out. Make sure all the reserves have been either used up or they understand what's left so it can pay down the principal balance of their mortgage. Make sure any clearance tests that are needed are documented so we can send that to the lender. And then if there's an occupancy permit or any type of final permit from the city or the county or whoever the jurisdiction is that's permitting that project, you want to basically get proof that it's passed, okay? So that way we know that the people can move in, everything's been approved and passed and done. Then we also want the client to sign off, okay? We want the client to say, yes, everything is done. They're ready, willing, and able to release all final monies and the holdback money to the contractor. So remember that the lender is typically going to hold back 10% of each draw as a retainage just to make sure the contractor gets to the end. So for example, if a draw was $10,000, the bank's going to hold back 10%, so $1,000. So that check is going to go out to the contractor for $9,000, even though there's $10,000 worth of work done. So that $1,000 just sits in reserve, and it just waits till the end. So on this final draw, what we're doing is we're requesting from the bank to release the final draw plus all of the holdback money. And that's critical because that holdback money could be significant. If it's a $100,000 job, that could be $10,000 just sitting there that is for work that's already been completed, but it's been held back, and that's just the policy of the bank to make sure everything gets 100% complete at the end. And then you're doing your final inspection draw. Make sure all of these things are done before we hit the submit portal and tell the admin to close out the file. Because what you don't want to do is submit it and be like, hey, we're waiting on final change orders, we're waiting on clearance tests, we're waiting on all these things. What you would want to do is not submit the final draw in the portal. What you'd want to do is give us an update and say, this is an update, the final draw inspection has been done, but it is not ready to close out, still waiting on change orders or still waiting on an occupancy permit. And then that way everybody knows what's happening. That job is kind of stuck in final phase until all these other items are cleared out. So that's how you close out a job. And once you see the portal, once you see how that works and we train you on it, it'll all make sense. But just slow down a little bit on the final because we want to make sure everything is 100% done and we've got everything in place before we request the final draw packet.